Allah never die, Allah never die. Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die. As I emerge in deep thoughts, covered underwater by 3/4. Sun draws the water like an artist by seashore. To be more specific, simplify my lyrics for those who doubt the roads can know about spirits. You turn it up to hear it, turn it up for drama. Payback is natural like the laws of karma. Kenyatta the Dalai Lama, I pack Salama. Rest in peace MJ, I'm not Obama. Change like weather, Houston or revolution. Nuisance, the days of my youth a nuisance. The growing pains ache me so. Same things that make me cry, make me grow. 0 degrees below, my heart is cold like Kyle's crystals. Now I stroll the ghetto with hell with snub-nosed pistols. Official, blow the whistle. If I whistle, it's like North Korea sending missiles. Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die. Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die. When the spook set by the door, with a glass on earlobe, surprise, many wise, alas, you heroes can't pass my flow, some fast, some slow. You have to know what to blast with calicos. We style a show scot-free, transparent 360 degrees, Cartier spec, black fatigues. My mask is squeeze, bum, squeeze like sponge. Release like these type of seasons, done. I've been the coolest dude since Rubik's Cube. Gat in the small of my back, I use the tool like home improvement, Tim Allen. I've been wildin', been rapping, blowing spots like Bin Laden. Holla talk beer for the homies not here. And I pull out the kettle gun fuckers just like beer. And I pull out the metal gun, pop one in the air. And that's 21 salute, got the guns to shoot. Blah. Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die. Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die, Allah never die. Have it your way like BK.
The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages. The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work. Can I start again? The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian, he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God stepping in score, Sunya Zala, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and each timeless insight will be archived. And again, this show is about my element of hip-hop, what I call the writer of art on art and science on music, the only show in the history of this culture on the hip-hop writer element that I, a veteran of almost 25 years, helped to pioneer. And to kick that off, though, I want to, we're now officially with a release date for my book, The Filtered Real, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance, that's coming out on October 11th on paperback and ebook. And Just to give you a little description of the book that's written there. It's a collection of art on art and science on music essays from a pioneer of the hip-hop writer element, me, noted for dubbing this 2010's decade's best hip-hop, the Invisible Renaissance. Sunyas details the major works, artists, trends, and insights of the era, using the massive amount of works released in 2018 to springboard through the histories of countless greats and legends of the era. This collection will be an important historical document of this era's music, as well as a prime example of exemplifying the mantra of bringing science of music and displaying art on art. And there's a whole bunch of artists I named that are in there. You can imagine some of the best works of the last year and really this whole decade and even beyond, because they all have a context, you know what I mean? But that book is coming out on October 11th. And it's going to be good. What else am I supposed to say? I wrote the shit out of it. You know what I mean? I wrote the shit out of it. You know, you get nearly 300 pages of, you know, what we do, you know? What am I supposed to say? You know? But, you know, one thing I was thinking about, because I've been asked about the 50 rapper list and stuff like that. And by the way, you know, people dissing people for doing a list. When you love hip-hop, you do lists because we like this, like, you know, like they're baseball players, you know? We got baseball cards. If they made trading cards of rappers and stuff, we'd be collecting that stuff. And, you know, I trade my Jay-Z for Rakim and KRS and a whole bunch of shit, you know what I mean? And we'd be doing all that. And so people that like the music, they're going to do this kind of stuff. You know, they spend a lot of time listening to this stuff. I mean, they would do it with music of all type of genres, but especially hip-hop, because it's like, you know, it's a cultural music. It comes from our area. But speaking of that last thing I just said, this is also why a 50 MC list is usually no good. There's a couple of reasons. I'll give you the reasons now, real quick. A list is no good first because it doesn't have the Earth, Wind, and Fire. It doesn't have the reasons, you know what I mean? Don't have the reasons why they're there, you know what I mean? And that's what a list is primarily best for, you know? When I started to collect like jazz music for real, I was either going to, you know, reading things, like, you know, you go to a store and you read the backs of things, you know, the liner notes of records, but you also go to like allmusic.com and you read reviews, right? You know, and you try to go online, you try to see what people list, like who are the greatest trumpet players of all time and stuff, you know what I mean? And, you know, you can argue if they don't have, you know, Louis, Dizzy, and Miles in the right order, but essentially you're going through the list to see who's in there, and you're going to find other people in there, you know? You're going to find the Lee Morgans and stuff, people that you didn't know about unless you were really collecting. And it could be, once you get past like 5 and stuff, it's always going to be difficult. You know, number 15, and difference between 15 and 16 is so moot that it's really not worth arguing. You're only going to argue stuff that is so drastic. But the point is that it's more of an educational device, you know, for you to get into stuff and to see where people's legacy is, and so you could develop your own criteria when you collect. The other thing is this: is that MCing, unlike, let's say, is even more distinct than jazz. To make a top 50 list, is that there's more differences between MCs than, let's say, trumpet players. So you might, and since I'm going with the jazz thing, Miles Davis had a very low register, a detail in the low register, but he didn't have that power that Dizzy or Louis had. But he had the compositional ability. So it puts him up there, but you still wouldn't put him up because he doesn't have that power, you know, that it's so valued by a trumpet player. So in the ranking, you get it. It's usually 1, 2, 3. Usually Miles is going to be 3 if you just talk about trumpet playing. But when you talk about MCs, it's a little different because there's very few rankings that are absolute. So an MC that kind of can do everything, right? An MC that kind of did everything. Let's say catalog, techniques, styles, voice pitches, different musical genre, blending in other musical genres and styles. KRS-One easily is, you know, is going to be a absolute GOAT candidate. But a lot of people, and you know, we always flip-flop Rakim, but Rakim is so much more limited than KRS on a technical level and a lot of other levels. So why is Rakim there? Because the criteria, the lyrics, the depth of it, the knowledge itself, right? All of these things it took Rakim above, and Rakim's writing techniques changed the whole thing. So if you don't have a criteria, the list is also moot. The other thing that goes with that is the MC that is abnormally gifted in one of the important criterias that the others don't even matter. Like let's say a Jizza. You know, Jizza's not going to sing your tune. He's not going to Lauryn Hill the tune in the chorus. You know, he's not going to change his pitch high and low like Ghostface. You know, he's not going to have those different ranges, play with vocals. But he's like a GOAT candidate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he has classics. He has all this stuff. Like, he blows you away. I mean, he's, to me personally, might be one of the most influential writers in my life. You know, like writers, like, you know, reading it or listening. So that leaves out the MC of like a limit, doesn't have all the range, but has like something so grand that is immaculate. You know what I mean? And then time periods. So how do you fit in Planet Asia or Thurston and into a list of pioneers? It's too difficult. You know what I mean? It loses the impact of what you're saying. You know, once you get past like 30, who you argue 33 and 32, you know, like this shit gets stupid. But
it could kind of do
yeah,
it
if you had that criteria in it, you know,
if need be. But even with that, the limitation of it because of where the game is.
Yeah.
You gotta understand. 20 years ago, 20 years ago, 250 rappers was something.
Yeah, I mean this is abnormal.
Now
also,
we
another thing, you know,
we in the millions now.
Here's the last thing I was thinking. What about the hip hop is a local thing? You know, it went worldwide. It has this pop shit that we say is not even in the genre and stuff, and it has stuff that blows up like a Nas or something that is definitely GOAT level, but hip hop is also about the local artist that represents local areas. So you can see a brother from the South where he'll like a local guy that nobody else knows because that guy he does have gifts, but he also speaks to an area that no one else can speak to, and that means something. So with these lists too, you kind of eliminate the point of hip hop that was supposed to also venerate that local product. You know what I mean? That guy that represents an area that was under or never represented. You know, and that's the thing. When you make a 50 list, it kind of excludes certain things. It's going to overuse commercial, and it overuses commercial success because most of the people that make the list don't have a good collection. They don't have a big collection, so they're not. Man, they didn't hear all the records, and they probably didn't hear all the records of. If you make a list, I'm not making a list of anything if the top 10 guys that I put on the list, I don't have at least 90% of the catalog. I doubt that the people that made the list have all that, you know what I mean? But anyway, I said that to say this because it's all about my shit and my book. In this book on the Invisible Renaissance, I actually put a couple of lists, but I made like I made lists to help people see how deep the decade has been. But I knew I was going to miss a lot of people because a lot of people may not have had a lot of work that I wish that they had. They may not have continued to put out work, or I just missed them. You know what I'm saying? I have them all, but you know, you miss it. So I made note that there would be incomplete lists, things to catapult you into going to things, which to me is always the point of a list. But in this book, I have some lists to guide people to not only that, but to my next books, because I have books that go deeper into the MC and deeper into these works that no one's really put into a context. But on that note, this whole to conclude that and go into this next aspect, the other aspect is what I say is art on art. To make this an element, it has to be creative, and a journalist isn't necessarily showing complete creativity. A journalist reading another journalist will note creativity within it, but the average person won't. So that was always a problem when I was writing. I felt I wanted to make it a real genre, a real element, something that was adding to the creativity of it. So I started to include prose and poetry, and then to make it more overt, I isolated a lot of that. I would isolate it so you could see it and see how it was inspired by the art, but it also could stand alone. And I like to read a couple of them every episode. in this art recital, there's a piece I called "The Rise of La Vol Revolt," and La Vol Revolt is actually one of the magazines I published a long time ago. I self-published a magazine and was editor-in-chief of it, and then I made it into my own blog. But Lavoe is Hector Lavoe, the great salsa singer, who I say that's my goat, but right. That's another argument. But his name means the voice, La Voz, and then it just became Lavoe. They just didn't, just made it one word, La Voz. The voice became Lavoe. So I was like the voice of revolt. And for people that don't know, Revolt is one of my favorite Eddie Palmieri songs that is about the revolution of Puerto Rican independence, right? So I put it together, like, those my favorite, favorites. So it was La Vol Revolt. So I called this The Rise of La Vol Revolt, and it's relevant indirectly to my guest I have here today because it was for a piece reviewing Louis Lou's EP, number 4, So I had thought of that, and I thought of him, and this all came out. So I called it The Rise of La Vol Revolt. Bathed in flinty beverages, dehumanized through quacked fault lines of their forefathers, nourished and raping hurricanes, vaccine cane hurries sugars through innocence, sweetens the load, seeking to spoil the bitter builder, seeding rebellion, but the salts of sages grip the warrior's strides. So percents of 85 and greater are ravaged beyond mute. Campana con gonga, albizu con Allah, skill-illustrator sentences set in scrapes, indigenous and beholden like scrap low rushing states. The louding voices of savages civilized is an orchestra on the square, cornering the enemies of freedom, justice, and equality, outflanking trans, real, respect, fake, and USPA battalions, to the rise of number 7 with 4. I self-lord and master the procession of poems at Palante pouncing. Sunset Park grass-fed low, but Ponce I paraded from. So that was a piece, But I use it, as usual when I do these, I use it as a segue to my guest that I would say immediately, I'm hoping that this is a beginning to archive someone in hip-hop that when we want to talk about, there are all types, I call this era the invisible renaissance, and there are all types of individuals that have been veiled by fiendishness, devilishment, or just people's ignorance and not seeing the skill levels and the essence of it. Certain individuals that are small cornerstones, people that they show up everywhere. You know what I mean? Like that. And my guest today is like, imagine if Forrest Gump was actually adding on and not a goofball and was everywhere, just like in those pictures. He was everywhere. Every single scene he was adding on in some distinctive level in hip hop since the 90s all the way to today. That person that when they're in the background, other MCs that you go to watch, remember to keep it real a little bit more. Rhyme about the things that they actually do and fortify the skill sets that they have and practice stuff. And if they say that they're the true and living God, they make sure they know a degree or two, know the mathematics, you know what I mean? If they say that they're this, they say that they're that, they make sure that their stripes is not just painted on, you know what I mean? There's certain people like that, and this has kept this hip-hop culture a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more worthwhile. And when they do get the chance to record, oh man, we kind of miss it, unfortunately. And I get to go back because this show doesn't have to have just the people that release things immediately and the next person that release. And it's a long time coming, And I remember the last conversation, I forgot what show we was at. I think it was Tragedy Gaddafi, right?
Yeah.
And we was out there building. And it was just a history. And I was like, I got to build with the God. And let you guys in on some of this history that makes things more worthwhile. You know what I mean? That there were artists out there that you didn't see them. But they were changing and they were shifting the culture. You know what I mean? By just being real and being in those ciphers, And that brother I have is one of the greats from Brownsville. Our brother Kenyatta Black, a.k.a. the God, Black Man Allah. Peace, God.
Peace, Almighty.
All right?
Yes.
Peace to God, you know what I mean?
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to go into it later, though, but I just thought about it, like, everything that you were telling me that you done and the things that I saw you doing, and I was like, oh, he's here, he's there. You're one of those people I spot everywhere. it literally works with that title of the work that you released a few years ago, Aggressive Yet Selective. This is really like a career mantra of the way you've moved and made moves. But we're going to go into that later, though, stuff, because I want to make this a little definitive, and I want to start with your origins, you know what I mean? I know you're from Brownsville, Brooklyn, what I like to call the Kingston of hip-hop, you know what I mean? But tell me about growing up in Brownsville and just how hip-hop became something you were going to do, is like just these hip-hop gifts started coming out, because I know that you were delved in a lot of the elements.
My origins, to be honest, was I was fortunate enough to be in the right circle, like something me and Vass coined. We call it the Gump effect, like literally the Forrest Gump effect about that. Like I got a song called the Gump effect for the next album, but yeah, my origins was with the a group called Born in Hell. Born in Hell was 2 5%ers I grew up with. 2 brothers. One was Allah and one was Shabar. They formed a group, but they was being managed by MC Light. They had Duke the Moon Management at the time. They was a subsidiary of First Priority Music. Nate Robinson, and we was just, I was a kid watching this. I seen another kid that was there named Ro the Problem Child. He was already being managed by MC Light, Pamela Wilder, aka Makima Mooncycle, and Queen Isis. Those 3 ladies was our management at the time. I was fortunate to be like a little 11-year-old watching my brothers put out white labels at the time. They had a song called Only the Strong Survive. Only the Wise Can Excel. And MC Light referenced it in one of her songs, Keep On, where she even say, once said by my Born in Hell. And she was talking about my brothers at the time, and it was like, all right, I know I could do this. But that was like the first time me seeing it, putting up stickers for Lin Q, and watching my brothers put out white labels with them on First Priority and Duke the Moon Management. Then I formed a group called the Universal Soldiers. It was like a 6-man group with 1 female. We was like a young, hungry, new Wu-Tang that was...
Well, what year was this? Like, what year?
92, 93. We was watching Wu-Tang. We was literally watching them and watching the Fugees at the same time. So we was formulating our thing. Out of Langston Hughes, Brownsville, Van Dyke. It was a collective of about six dudes, one female, and we was called the Universal Soldiers.
Well, let me pause you here, because I'm always intrigued. It's funny, I always ask people from Brownsville this and other areas that are real concentrated with like talents, you know what I mean? Whether it's Queens or the other areas. You see all these people making white labels, people around the hood, people that like you're right there, like it becomes a possibility. It's not so distant now. But it's all about being unique when you do this stuff. Like, isn't there a level of intimidation? Like, yo, what do I do? How am I going to develop a unique style? What will be that unique style from...
Great segue, because it's intimidating seeing the talent before you. Like I said, my brothers alone with the group Born in Hell, they was great enough for me not to want to do it. But then I seen Roll, the studio that Light took us to, and it was his brother Deck was the engineer, and we was fortunate to record with them. I was seeing him. He was 12 years old with a record deal. He was already putting out music. He was getting courted by like of Luther Campbell was coming out to see him. I seen Half a Mill used to come see him at the time. They was a group. May he rest in peace, Half a Mill. That made me say it's a possibility now. 'Cause I'm seeing his skill level, and then I'm watching my brothers. So to form our group at this time, like you said, you had to be unique, and Wu-Tang had the Shaolin thing, but we was the first. I would say what Killer Army did. We was going there. We was going with that military thing, but it was going fast because a lot of groups was doing it too. A lot of other groups was doing that. Boot Camp Click was doing that, but not at that time. We was really spearheading that because our logo was that. We was all 5%ers, and we was using Universal Soldiers and wearing fatigues at that time. Everybody was wearing fatigues at that time in Medina. We had fatigues and braids or some type of dress. That was just the look. Early 90, 92, 93. It was fatigues and braids. You wore Little Timbs or Hydro. But yeah, a different hungry era. And definitely creative, and we was meeting Sons of Man, and we was meeting Killer Armies at that time because it's the same 5% collective, in the studio. We had a crew called the Population Clique. This would be the first clique in New York at the time. When I say first clique, boot camp wasn't boot camp at the time. They was in Bucktown, USA, at that time. We was Population Clique, aka PC, and then they changed to Boot Camp Clique, as in a BCC.
Right.
But they was Bucktown, USA prior to that, from the song Bucktown. And Duck Down, Nervous, they was Bucktown, USA, as a team. And they changed over.
Yeah, because we don't hear that until like, what was it, 95, into 96, really?
Then they became Clique.
Yeah.
We was the first one saying Clique. We was the first one saying cartel in the East Coast. We were saying the Black Rose Cartel. We were saying these type of different offsprings of crews.
Because we only hear these names later with the Wu later, as you guys, the affiliates recognize you and stuff like that, and and the synergy with that. But it has an earlier root. From what you're telling me. That's
an earlier route because you got to understand, RZA is from Brownsville.
Right.
Before going to Staten Island, you had Shaolin style in Marcus Garvey. Vic and them was doing that. Big Vic Lowe and them they had a crew that was Shaolin style, that was shaving your hair. They'd catch you and shave your hair.
He told me about that.
This is before the low life, so... that was the Brownsville spirit to be in a collective crew, the Little Rascals, the Brownsville Boys, the Tomahawks, the 5%ers. It was the thing to do. Decepticons and lowlifes.
It's really something because a lot of the deepest roots of creativity of the Woos, the RZA, Jizza, A-Sun, those are like. They're Medina, you know what I mean? Like, so they're coming from a tradition of seeing all that. It's got to inspire somehow, you know what I mean?
And then going to other boroughs, like they say, seeing giant MCs in the Bronx like that. I lived in the Bronx. I know is a lot of Darrow lyricists from the Bronx. My favorite right now of all time is Lord Tariq. Like, he is their Jay-Z to me. He's their champion MC. Out there, I always like Lord Tariq as one of their dopest lyricists to stand up. Anytime they needed somebody to stand up, it was Lord Tariq lyrically, like, and it's the different criteria today that we're judging them.
Nobody would mention Tariq without because you gave a different insight to it and a perspective of looking at it, That's a big deal, you know what I mean?
Like, we could say Fat Joe, but it wouldn't be correct for as
Yeah.
lyrical ability.
Yeah, it wouldn't be qualitative like that. Yeah.
He's definitely one of the great legends and icons from that barrel. But
Yeah, more iconic than skillful.
Melly Mel is more of a lyrical beast
Absolutely,
of that
yeah.
barrel than you know. So,
Yeah. And then without a lot of catalog, which Melly Mel doesn't have the catalog that matches, let's say, a Nas or KRS and stuff.
But
How do you put him there?
that's the thing.
You have to let people know, how would you put him there, you know?
My 50 MCs wouldn't the criteria wouldn't be about the catalog. I would eliminate
interesting.
that too.
Really?
Because I would go to Park Legends and all that.
Yeah.
I would have to mention people that inspired people.
And that's why, and that's why, in a lot of ways, a lot of times when I talk as a hip hop journalist, I talk about point of contact. The best type of journalist that can become a historian is where his point of contact was. So mine was in the 90s when I started to get into magazines and all that. And the point of contact is really, I focus on that music. So I talk about recorded music. So if I make a list or I make a suggested idea, I'm talking about recorded music. So I'm doing the reverse of what you are.
And it's definitely a worthy criteria to make lists with. The list is a limitation. All labels are limitations, but you set the criteria based on, all right, this is going to be about talent. This is one list.
Right.
The best MC or best rapper. That's two different lists right there already.
Yeah.
And one is based on talent, one is based on work. And you judge a person by you judge a tree by the
That's
fruit
true
it
too,
bears.
and then we might not always see their talent though. You know what I mean? So, I'm just throwing this out there, and then we'll go back to Kenyatta's history. But let's say and just being cruel with it, like really, Melly Mel didn't get to record or didn't get to continue, so his legacy is shorter than, let's say, a Nas or a KRS-One. And then a KRS-One, though, would have significant live performance history. So then we could say that, wait a minute, we could assume, like the list maker is going to assume that I don't think Melly Mel could hang with KRS-One because he didn't last. He would never last as long.
The brightest stars burn out the fastest.
Hey, I don't have a response for that right now. Damn you, Kenyatta. Let's go back to Kenya. See, this is what I'm talking about. But
it always happens.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I get that.
That's
you
why
know what I mean?
it's based on criteria.
It
If we
depends
look
on the
at
criteria.
the work,
And see, I'm coming from a thing where like a list could be to have us know that history, because then what you're saying has to be in there. But if somebody's collecting, you know what I mean? It becomes a different type of list.
if I do that right, I can show you the shorter catalog beating the longer catalog.
I agree with that too. In
With
a lot
one
of
or
ways,
two songs beating 6 albums and shit like that.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
Based,
I don't.
based
I
on
don't
lyrical
deny,
ability and things like that. That's why
I don't
say
deny that, because most people would have to say Nas over, let's say, because we talk about Jizza. But in my heart, Jizza's always more of a favorite for me. You know what I mean? So in things like that, and he's more concentrated.
I would think
less bars.
Talent wise, I would say Jizza over Nas. I would say that.
Yeah, I mean, if we went through a lot of
lyrical ability and what he contribute, I would say he's lyrically better.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a lot of people wouldn't say that because it's politically not correct based on the younger crowd and standards of that thing. Because we would always have to throw Melly Mel back in the same way with Rakim, the same way with KRS-One, based on ability, not even with their catalog alone. But we could use that. We could definitely use that to see what happened. Yeah. But you got to say, was your hit effective? Everybody got hammers, but was your
Melly Mel, the message. It's hard to find a song as impactful as that.
Right.
Songs are only, at best, let's say at best, match it. They can't really beat it, But what song is matching that? Maybe Fight the Power. You know, it has to be a song like that that could maybe hang with it, but
Yeah, but that,
you're
not
not
that
really,
impact.
yeah, you're not really, you know.
Because it set the stage
so that's why
for
we
the,
use other
for the
stuff
whole
like
50 years.
if
It set the stage.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think songs can match it on a technical level. Like, me personally, I think a New York State of Mind or some of Jizz's Best could match that, you know, as far as technical
Yeah.
ability. But again, the list is for us to explore, not for us to definitively decide. But when you start all these groups, the population clique and stuff like that, the first question is like, what happened to them and how did they dissolve or merge into different things that you were doing? You know, the population clique and the other things you were working on. What happened with all this? Like, how did it develop?
The Population Clique was a mighty collective of a bunch of groups and solo artists from that time, from out of Brownsville. It just so happened that two groups made it to one label, and it kind of overshadowed the rest. Before the deals, we was hitting every club, SOs, SOBs, the underground circuit. Just trying to get your name on flyers, just participating. Then when the formulation of Raucous Entertainment, then you get the group 7 Universal. See, Universal Soldier split. It's 3 members going into the label to be the first rap group on the label. 7 Universal, and then they get 4 more as the Rose family. So out of 7 people from our crew got signed with that new former label, Raucous Entertainment, and that spearheaded all the hip hop that came from that time. Prior to that, we would be the guinea pigs, or nobody would ever went to that label. It was like a rock label. They did pop music and rock music at the time. So, Orgasm, Motor Baby. When we got there, reggae, Papa Bear Cool Breeze, he was the reggae artist on it, and the A&R was John Forte from our neighborhood. So
You were telling me about John Forte and
that was the way that we was being walked in, because somebody from our neighborhood that was a talented A&R, a talented producer, was able to bring the best groups that he knew, and that was us at that time. And labels, once the labels got involved, it changed into I would say the Population Clique was like a strong 5% crew of rappers. And then when the game got a touch of us, then we got a little commercialized and even jaded to a degree, and then things got so haywire. Like, we ran through the whole game from that point on without ever signing any labels. Without ever going back to any more labels from that point. The Rose family moved to the West Coast. Me and Forte went to Columbia, Columbia Records, that is, with the Fugees. I did street team promotions for them around that time, leaving street team promotion for Raucous, but going into Columbia Records and just watching Forte sell music to the Fugees when they was putting out the scores.
And at this time, are you like thinking you're gonna be part of a group, or really as a solo act eventually?
At this time, I'm thinking a solo artist, but I'm making my rounds as Vital the Arab, aka Viatola Khomeini, just featuring on whatever Sons of Man or Cannibal Ox type of records. People I went to high school with, or people that was in our crew collective. Like, it's a crew that's after school, and it's a crew that's in school. The in school was my Harlem Connect, and the after school was like Sons of Man, Killer Army, and that's like after school I'm with my Wu, Israelites, my hard body, guard body team.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all day hip hop.
All these years, like you're around. I mean, the guys that you're mentioning are some of the all time greats as far as talents, you know. And through these years, what do you? Because what we hear today of Kenyatta, a lot of people, if you hear that aggressive yet selective, we're gonna go into that. You know what I mean? But I want to hint at it. There's a lot of subtle. You're a real master at subtle diversity. You know, like you do a lot of different types of techniques that go very unnoticed. You know what I mean? And no song sounds the same. You know what I mean? And you have this way of doing a totally different technique with the same calm and the same pitch. You know, and when you're going through that, when is it that you decide to start, you know, making that pitch to be a solo artist, and then the conflicts with the labels and stuff, and how it develops and stuff?
Seeing the lack of creative control once, it's just like being an American at this time. We trade in our securities for freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
We trade in our freedoms for certain securities, and you know, same thing. Dudes be wanting those so-called bank deals. They want those them deals so bad. That was the only options other than selling drugs. Anything they didn't see school as an option. Rarely do. At that time, you had to have a brother that was coming from the army that had some type of discipline that was saying, or even martial arts. We had older brothers. We was fortunate to have older brothers that was in both worlds, in streets and in the industry. So I was blessed to see both sides. Forte went to Phillips Exeter in New Hampshire. So
That's big, man. Yeah.
We was able to see what life was like for Tootie from Fax's life, and then also to see in the thick of Brownsville. It was like,
Let me ask you about that knowledge base and getting the knowledge itself, because the ciphers that you're around, there's so much information. You know, you say that so casually, but even other parts of Brooklyn didn't have that diversity and influx of different people really overtly trying to bloodsuck, absorb the talent, absorb the vibe and creativity of an area and all of that. You know, because I often say, where I was from in Medina and Sunset Park, I had to go get the knowledge. I couldn't get it there. I had to leave to go get it. You know, you brothers are in Brownsville. It's already there. You're in the heart right there. The heart is right there. Everything is surrounding you. All of this, and the reason I say that for the listener, the knowledge itself comes with an entire ingrained history of not only the arts, but also the martial arts, as you were saying, an entire culture that just naturally sways toward that, you know, and creatively expressing ideas. I mean, a youth-led music was the perfect form for sharing the knowledge itself.
I agree.
You know, it was perfect. We said teach the babies, and then babies are listening to hip-hop, and then we're babies making music, and as we grow, we make this music, and it's for other children and kids and teenagers. It just everything made sense.
I was the shyest guy, man. I didn't have the self-esteem to have to even communicate to jumping ciphers. But the first rules of being a young 5%er is you got to say when you know something. You can say all you want around us. You can stay out as long as you want, as long as you know something. So those was the achievements at that time. That was something to work for. I wanted to go outside. Maybe I shouldn't have needed to be outside at that time, but that was an achievement. They keep saying go upstairs. You shouldn't be outside. But I can break the rule at that time by knowing something. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you're saying,
like,
yeah.
you got to go upstairs, little man. But I know 120. Oh, you can stay outside. That breaks the
Right.
That kind of breaks
Because
the
you've
rules.
shown that you're learning, and now you're showing that you can actually add on. And you know that's a different aspect of different places that are really roots and foundations of this knowledge itself. You know what I mean? Because you don't see that everywhere in Brooklyn, and you don't see it everywhere in Manhattan, what we call Mecca, Brooklyn, what we call Medina. You see that in those select areas, and that's why places like Bed-Stuy and that surrounding area that includes East New York, Brownsville, all that area is often seen as like a heartland, really.
Yeah, it's concentrated.
Because that wasn't the case everywhere, you know, and that becomes a thing in the culture, you know. And since we're talking about cultural movements and how they impact the way we've made hip hop and the way we've sustained it, really, you know, then I got to talk about the low lives. You know what I mean? And then the work with that and how it's able to not only absorb brothers like you that really came through it and were doing things that were not as you know, were not as righteous, but then were there when it was melding into something more righteous where it could absorb people like me that are here that are in low lives just for cultural contributions. You know what I mean?
Again, with the Gump thing, I was blessed to see the foundation of that. I was blessed to see the survival skill of it, because that's what it's really based off. It's based off survival skill. When you get good at something, then it becomes a competition. It's like, he invented throwing it down a leg. All right, I'm gonna bring something to the table. So now you get the next dude, Frizz comes. Now he got the book bag. He throwing it up the back. He getting stuffed. He say hop 3 times. He stuffing them. Boom, boom, boom. So the skill of it now creates the competition.
Right.
And even in the nation, you had dudes that felt quoting faster made them better. You had dudes that had longer names, colorful names, but wasn't really saying anything because they understand it wasn't clear.
Right,
you know,
right.
They had real fuzzy on vision. It was on Channel 3 for a
and
while.
then when we really build, the intensity becomes not only who can quote, but who really has something worthwhile as far as understanding. But let me segue this, Kenyatta, because we got to talk about all this stuff that you've done. It now reaches to this present moment, and I tried to give you know, all you fellow listeners, like an insight to how deep rooted he is in hip hop. And it's a scratch. We just scratched the table of the depth and what you were seeing. But there's so much that you're doing now. You know, you got the whole clique, a leader, one of the leaders of a pack of leaders, the Crimson Gods. So you got the Crimson Gods, but you also have the Eartight label, where you're putting out music with Louie Lou, Peace to the God,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And so it's also, you know, bi-coastal. It's very worldwide. You know what I mean? And then, you know, I also, before we even get into all that, because I don't leave that as a last note, I gotta ask you about the record Aggressive Yet Selective. You know what I mean? Because, like I was alluding to, what I love about boom bap, and when I call it the invisible renaissance, because even if you're a follower of all this stuff, you might be, you just most likely will be oversaturated with the amount of work.
Right.
And then most of these great works, and there's a lot of good stuff, you would be missing out the details that require further listening. And Aggressive Yet Selective is one of those things. I started off the show playing Allah Never Die. Can't have the God come on and then we don't play that song. That's got to be the anthem that we play, right? But none of the other songs sound like that. And when we pick another song, none of the other songs sound like that. But one consistency through the collection is that you, I don't know if it was consciously done, but you kind of went for songs that would have an anthemic, what I like to call an anthemic pulse to it. They would be anthems of different levels, you know? So like for the Gods, the Allah Never Die, that's, you know, that's the track. But then you have the ruler steps, And that's a big anthem too. That's like a stomper right there, you know what I mean? And it's got the remix with the added on MCs, you know, which is a very unique mix too. You know what I mean? Not too many songs with Daz Dillinger and Billy Danz on it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not getting that on a track, you know, often, you know?
I wanted to get two of my favorite gangster rappers to be on the same track from different coasts.
Right. You went
And
from, yeah.
I wanted to get somebody from my home, definitely from my home base, OG from my hood.
Right.
Billy
One of the
Danz.
greats, yeah.
So I always see him and big shout out to Slap. Fame and Billy is pioneers. They're icons in my hood. So they up the hill. I'm from the projects, but it was like I definitely got to get them and work with those brothers. And I'm gonna work with Fame too. I've been building with him lately too, but to get Daz and Dan's, that was the idea. And I got a call from Priest, so I just said, let me sneak him in the middle.
I ain't mad at that. I'm such a fan of Killer Priest.
And I know his ability. Other than he's a giant too.
Yeah, and you know, people don't always use him for that hard body track, but he's really good with that.
Yeah.
You know, people think he's just like take you on a crazy spiritual trip and, you know, through the cosmos tale. But
because I seen him do it with Nas and the Gun for Gun and
right.
He do these type of shit.
Yeah. He's got a lot of hardcore like.
He did it on a 5-barrel record with KRS-One.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that record. Yeah, that's true. That was a good one.
Yeah, Priest, he got range.
But even in your all by yourself cuts, you chose totally different styles. Like On Arrival and In Tune have totally different flows, totally different concepts. You know what I mean? When you made this, right? When you were making this record, how long did it take to make this record?
For that record, that took about 2 years. Of me putting my feet down and saying, all right, I can do an album. It got erased when dealing with one producer, and then when I found another producer, the same lyrics, but I was able to rewrite these lyrics this time. I was able to see where I flawed that with the album that was erased. So I'm looking at the lyrics like, oh, I could do that better. And that's
so that was like a first draft. It ended up being,
it was going to be an album called Humble Yet Effective. And Humble Yet Effective is my natural characteristics, but it got erased. So me being stubborn and saying, all right, I'm going to do this independently. I can now take time to choose and put my foot down and give the world something I believe is an offering of what I think I could do, and for what is the coming of the times. You know, you don't want to give just milk. You want to give water for the times. You know, so don't have no.
So why aggressive though? Because you had to really be intense about getting it done.
Yeah.
Really focus again because you lost all this shit. And
yeah, I had to revamp. I was touring at the time. Wow, just hitting every state, performing, and still being able to sneak back and just, all right, let me do this song. Let me officially get it done. Cause it's nothing to record. It's nothing even. But the best is to really write. To really take your time and write. A lot of these dudes just write and then read.
The changes you made as you added on and did this again, were they beat driven? Like, were they inspired by the tracks you were selecting?
I think it was more or less the experience. I've been a flow master from that era, being able to change up and get on different tracks. But I knew the changes was based on experiences that I growing, my understanding was growing. I'm seeing this would be more effective. Certain lines would be more keen, and I didn't want to be commercial, but I wanted to at least grab
because I feel this is my thought. Like when I listen to you, this is the way I process you. You have like a b-boy hype voice, but then you also have like this deeper tone that's more like the break shit up tone. And it kind of switches a lot in the album, though. It makes it very enjoyable to go from track to track. You know what I mean? And it's real subtle. Your pitch changes. You know, it's real subtle. And I don't know if you're doing it on purpose or just comes out. You know, after all these years, it just comes out toward what the track is. You know, you're trying to do for the track.
I do it on a law.
You know?
A law never dies to show
Right.
that I'm
Yeah.
finally comfortable through the years.
Mm.
I was never comfortable with my own voice and hearing it. And then after a while, when I did A Law Never Dies, like I'm gonna do. This is my spin on Give Me the Loot. What Biggie did with his two voices, where he did it on the verses. I did it on the chorus.
Right. Yeah.
Where
yeah.
I wanted,
And
I
it
wanted
was
to
very,
be
it was
like-
real conversational. It's like more of an intimate tone, you know?
Yeah, I wanted to be introspective,
Right.
but at the same time, you can hear my choruses change. Like it's gonna be a high pitched chorus. It's gonna be a deep voice chorus as well,
A
baritone.
lot of people not doing that. Like the tones change by accident, you know? Like engineers suck, you know? Like it should sound different because the engineers shit right. You're doing it on purpose, you know? You know, I also think it's a great. I like when a person's first like real complete work like that is a great introduction to you, you know.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a good and bad thing because I felt like it was a teaser and I was mad. I wanted it to be much longer than that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a great like representative teaser. Like if you hear this, you're gonna know why he's this good, you know. And if you know the details, if you really know what a seasoned MC sounds like, then you're gonna really appreciate the record, you know. Plus, you chose some real nice beats, you know. Some beats was nice,
Appreciate that.
you know. And just out of asking, it's a very different type of album cover. Like, you know, you got like the underground, the minors, and I'm sure that has something to do with like the underground, you know.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind that.
That's why it was aggressive.
Mm.
Because it was finally me digging for the right beats, the right sound, and scratching beneath the surface for understanding, for them to have the light on their crown chakras, in the darkness, have the light within the darkness coming in the caves, and giving light like Moses. And so when I seen that cover, I said, all right, that fits exactly with what it's like to be a coal miner. And mining for information and mining for music.
Right.
And that's what aggressive yet selective was about.
So let's get into this to end this episode here. I'm talking about the you know, working with Louie Lou, because I see you doing stuff with the God. I'm very excited about that because I feel like
Little bro.
I feel like his skill level is not peaked yet. I feel like it's on the rise of what we're seeing. Like gets better every day. He's in that thing. Like, you know, he's coming into his own right now.
Canon Ryu.
You know,
that's my brother right
yeah.
there.
And now you got the Eartight label. Tell me about that and the forming of that and what you intend to do with that.
Airtight was always an idea I had since high school. I had a clothing line idea since that time, but it became more complete with my brother Louis the Fourth, Lakim Allah. We do great business together. We do great music together, but we do great business together. We formulate our minds together and we will things into existence. There's nothing that we ever talked about that we didn't complete. So it was no brainer to form that with him, you know.
And I know that one of the songs that we're looking for, because I haven't heard it yet, is, you know, the new song. Was it the Gorilla?
Black Gorilla Rap.
The Black Gorilla Rap with Rim on it, you know. And I'm looking forward to hearing that though. 'Cause Rim is one of my favorites now, you know.
That's my brother, young A. Like, he got knowledge himself.
Oh, indeed, peace of the God.
So
Yeah.
I'm reaching my arms out to all the gods. You know, that's been my thing. As a solo artist, but always been in the game doing it. So it's gonna really work, especially after what happened with Nipsey Hussle. So it just makes us put a flashlight on America a little more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been reaching out to everybody that's civilized.
Gotcha.
You know, it don't matter what affiliation, but all civilized people, street organizations, whatever, that's willing to unite, come together for one common cause. I'm reaching out to those brothers all across and getting great responses too, because a lot of I hear likes all across America is really paying attention. We would never know this, but they paying attention to us. We still the Mecca. You know, we just gotta lead by example. That's all they look for. Our great leadership. They looking for that from the East Coast, especially New York.
Definitely. You know, with that said, go to Kenyatta's IG page, because all the other links to everything, Kenyatta, right? Kenyatta
Yes,
Black.
sir.
You know, just type in Kenyatta Black, right? The KENY
TTAH. Can't forget the H. Kenyatta with a H. Leave a little space. BLACK. Everything in Twitter. I guess Kenyatta _Black.
Yeah, and all the links are there to the Eartight, to the Crimson Gods, to all the brothers that are affiliated, all the brothers doing great work with Kenyatta, you know?
Yeah, streaming on everything. Streaming on everything that you can find music. You can find Kenyatta Black, Aggressive Yet Selective. And I dropped about a good 5 singles this year. And I'm going to drop Black Gorilla Rap tonight. I sent it out to all the DJs already, so
that's nice.
But I'm going to drop it tonight officially.
All right, that's what's up. That's what's up. So look out for that. By the time this show is archived, it'll definitely be out. So you can pause it, you can end it, you can listen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I want to thank you again, Kenyatta Black. This just scratches the tiny surface of the depth of what you've offered hip hop as a culture, as an original man, teaching, building, and I gotta thank you for everything that you're doing. You know what I mean? And
thank you, brother.
You know?
Just my pleasure. I always want to come and sit
definitely.
there with my ear, like, you know, it's
absolutely. So until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. For my great guest, Kenyatta Black, I'm your host, Sunni Zala, a.k.a. S.STREET. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.
Peace.